Let me help you with a second definition. This one is very academic, this definition, but it works for some people and they begin to better understand narcissism and can identify with it. So let me give you definition 2. Narcissism is a psychological disorder associated with grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. Let me just stop there actually, and let me just talk about that. I often think that empathy is quite the opposite to narcissism. In other words, the two cannot live in the same place. I often think about magnets that repel themselves. Empathy, one magnet, narcissism, the other, cannot coexist in the same place. They push against each other. And so an antidote to narcissism is to increase empathy. With that in mind, you could do something really helpful by watching a YouTube video, again by that person, Brené Brown, B-R-E-N-E, and you'll see a video that she has put there with lots of hits about empathy. It's a cartoon, maybe about 7-8 minutes long. You can't miss it. Listen to that video. It's really helpful in explaining what is empathy. And when you begin to understand the cost of empathy, you'll recognize how difficult actually as a trait it might be. Maybe what you've been exercising, what you've been doing with your acquaintances in your relationships is much more something to do with sympathy rather than empathy. Understand empathy really well, because if you can go after it, you're likely to see narcissistic behaviors recede. So let's pick up on our definition then. Narcissistic traits tend to run on a continuum. A higher psychologically functioning narcissist is often successful and charming, but may have intimacy problems in relationships. A person who has a more severe form of narcissism may appear nearly delusional with his or her grandiosity and may act out destructively when he or she feels criticized. Narcissistic behavior involves much idealization and devaluation. In order for you to be in the focus, others have to become less. Characteristic traits include grandiosity, entitlement, lack of empathy, idealization of self, and devaluation of others. Narcissistic damage occurs when a child's vulnerable and developing core sense of self is not seen and reflected back by the adults around him or her. Each child is born a unique individual with special gifts and personal challenges, multi-layered and both simple and complex. For any one layer to develop, that part of the child needs to be seen, heard, and understood and valued. You see, this is where some things don't go well in childhood, and the childhood development place holds a lot of keys to the development of, we call it the fragmented self, but also to, of course, the development of sex addiction, which is all about self-soothing. Doesn't mean the child is necessarily viewing porn or doing sexual things at that point, but it evolves from the patterns of self-soothing behaviors. Parents have to be present, to be mirrors, to bear witness and reflect back. Healthy, grounded parents help young people build a frame of reference for living. You could actually say that is a similar definition in this part to attachment issues. We're going to come on to attachment issues and help you to really understand that concept of attachment. Continuing with this definition though, when a parent's own woundedness and unmet needs override their ability to be present to a child, or a parent's undeveloped parts of themselves renders them unable to respond to a child's vulnerable and authentic needs, the child's core sense of self can be lost, fragmented, or undeveloped. The loss, fragmentation, and undeveloped and lost child enters a cold, cruel world, ill-equipped to relate, to define fulfillment from the inside out, and connect with the spirit of life. When our primal wiring meets the world we live in today, characterized by disconnection at personal, family, and social levels, we experience a helplessness and aloneness that is beyond what we are biologically prepared to embrace. Narcissistic wounding is sometimes referred to as the emptiness wound. That definition, it's very academic. Sometimes I read it for some clients, but I give them the sheet with it on. Don't know what you made of it, but the fact is, your brain is not going to want to acknowledge that you've got any of these traits. And I just say, go on a reflective journey. Begin to tease out and see whether, in fact, you actually do have aspects of this trace of narcissism. It is really important, actually, to find it, because it will be impacting your relationships. There will be some unseen, unconscious patterns of behaviors that others are noticing in you, but you may not readily notice, you may not readily acknowledge. In any event, even if you want to avoid any such label of narcissistic behaviors, definitely you'd want to go after the antidote, which is increase your ability to do empathy at a deep level. Empathy is really costly because there's something about, in order to really do empathy, I have to take my shoes off and step into your shoes in order to see the situation from your vantage point. That feels quite scary. Not all of us will want to look at life from somebody else's vantage point, particularly where they're going through some really difficult stuff. We would have to invest our emotions into where they are at in order to really do empathy. That really can feel very scary for some people. And so you're going to see the battle which you're going to engage in when you try and do more empathy in order to cause narcissistic behaviors to recede and get behind you. Single, but want to better understand why? Preparing for marriage and want to give it your best shot. Perhaps you're in a partnership, a couple, and want to address some issues. Maybe it's a marriage, but it just ain't working too well. Are you a couple, but know it could be better? Consider a diagnosis, a form of MOT for the relationship. Want to limit passing on the stuff to the children? Because we know that childhood development really does impact the shaping of us and how we go on to do adult life. Want to maximize the quality of your relationship? Perhaps communication just definitely is not working well. Conflict needs managing, needs resolving. Sex, the first casualty when there is conflict, may be something of a sense of a mismatch, but there are definitely some problems in sex. Maybe you're long time married and you've settled, but you know you haven't settled for good enough. Consider the Kairos Center video on demand program. In that program, you'll cover a lot of topics from A to Z, and you can do it in the comfort of your own home at your leisure, and have some periodical homework review sessions with me from time to time at your leisure. Maybe you would prefer secure webcam where one of you or both of you come for maybe weekly sessions. There's something for everyone in the Kairos relationship program. Contact me today. Whether you're in a partnership, a marriage, these things are true. Marriage is not the coming together of two people. It's actually a clash of two cultures, two experiences, two memories, two habits, two morals, two values. And that is a formulation for destruction, says Dr. Miles Monroe. Also, Dr. Creflo Dollar has said, marriage is the place of our healing. Don't leave it too quickly. And if I add a little bit extra to that, you're destined to repeat the problem. So why not work through this partnership in order to address the issues, which is more about me than the other person, and then make an informed decision about what you do for the future of the relationship. Send me a message. It's time to get your quality of life and relationship back on a proper footing.